Today, we got a good one for us to look at today. This one's name is Pukupuku, which honestly is the perfect name for something like this because even compared to the last two that we did, which was literally just a potted plant and nothing else, and then literally just a Lakitu that somehow had less artistry go into it in 94. But anyway, Pukupuku, and yes, that is ridiculous as a name goes, is somehow even lazier than the last two because for all intents and purposes, it's basically a balloon with a face and two arms attached. Two arms which coincidentally do nothing. Why does it have arms? Why any of this? Really, Hudson Soft. Like, I'm glad that this didn't happen during the last stage, but why did this happen at all? Like, on the list, you've got 8 bosses. That isn't that hard to put together. If you're running out of ideas when you only got 8 to do, I think you got something a little bit wrong on the design front, but whatever. Pukupuku is a balloon, which means that its gameplay is incredibly different to the last few bosses that we've been dealing with. One of the things that have been coming up is that we've had to attack the bosses using selective invincibility. They had to throw out their attacks and get into that form where they're vulnerable and then take damage. And in classic video game rule, you only had to hit them 3 times to actually get the kill. Pukupuku, on the other hand, you need to get about 12. Yeah, they multiplied it incredibly ridiculously. And thankfully they have made it easier to do. Pukupuku is the slowest boss that we've had to deal with yet. It doesn't go through any of the barriers, so it's actually incredibly easy to hit thanks to the advent of the line bombs, the motorcycle, and the dash move. The only real sticking point is that Pukupuku's attack is also a straight shot projectile. It's kind of hard to miss. Really, what you're going to be having a problem with is just setting up your bombs. Pukupuku moves so slow, but oddly attacks fast enough for its slow speed to kind of fake you out. I know this because while I was going back and getting this footage, I died to Pukupuku a bunch of times, and I don't really know why. Maybe it gets faster when it has more air in its balloon body or something, but honestly, I didn't check to really see what was going on there. The other problem is that even though this looks like it should be straightforward enough, Pukupuku, I think, also has selective invincibility just in a different way. Because what Pukupuku does is that when it gets hit enough, it completely deflates. And then it just pops on the ground. You have to hit it there in order to actually get the real damage. Otherwise, it reinflates itself, and you have to go through the entire rigmarole again. It's just an incredible way for the game to waste your time, make you impatient, and then make more fuck-ups, especially on a boss that you have to hit a dozen times, and you have to hit in specific forms to actually get some real damage. It's a tactic that we've seen as long as games have been able to be sophisticated enough to have different forms and to have gameplay mechanics like this. It has to be nearly 2 decades we've seen bosses do this, where their tactics make them seem like they're complacent, easy to hit, but then you start figuring out as you keep going through the attempts that what they're actually trying to do, either through their health being ridiculous or their attacks being slow, awkward, and really making you wait, is that their entire existence is just to drag things out and make it into a waiting game, because if they can make it into a waiting game, they can take advantage of a player's natural impatience just building up over time. And this gets a lot worse if the boss is successful enough to make you repeat playthroughs, because you're going to want to start cutting corners on the waiting game. The boss won't allow that, and it'll punish you by killing you for your attempt to do so, which it did for me multiple times. Not really sure why still. Pukupuku is going to be a unique case, because the last 2 bosses in this game are really going to ramp things up to 10, kind of stick with the traditional sort of gameplay that we've seen from P-Flower and Thundercloud, and really just end up wrecking your day as we start getting to the top of the difficulty curve in a Bomberman game. which I think is traditional for the franchise, honestly, even though I personally haven't played another Bomberman game. I do know they have kind of a reputation for incredibly difficult and obtuse moments. But Pukupuku here is your classic waiting game boss. You can't hit it multiple times. You have to wait for the animation to go away in order to get more hits. You have to wait for it to get into that one form of deflation in order to get the actual hit you need to actually win the fight. And at the end of it, what do you know? We don't actually get a new power-up, so what was the point of Chapter 6? Is there a tradition in the Bomberman franchise where you have to have 8 worlds even though they don't make sense? Could you really not have thought of another power-up? I mean, the motorcycle, yeah, is probably going to make us one of the most overpowered things on any map in this game, but if you're going to go with 8 chapters, you really should give us 7 power-ups, because there has to be a reward for dealing with your obtuse bosses. It just makes everything better if you do that.